Good morning. We've got a little bit of dolly crochet today. I'm using my Fakey Blythe as the model, and it's the little bag that she is holding here. Now, because of her size, body size, that's what I'm really working on. But because her head's big, you do have to take the bag up from the bottom and over her shoulder, but it's not really difficult. I also can mention it does fit any other sort of fashion size, sort of 12-inch, maybe 10 to 15-inch doll, and it fits them just as nicely. As you can see, it makes a great bag for Cindy there as well. So she just came in for a quick model there. She's showing off her new outfit from the Jolly Dolly shop, which is absolutely gorgeous. And my little Fakey here has her new, look at those little sheep, they're so cute, a new little dress that is from Bella's Doll Clothes. So, but this is what we're going to get on with today. We're going to be using a 4-ply 100% cotton yarn. Now, this is the one that some people might feel a bit weird about if they've not used a small hook, but we're using a 1.75mm crochet hook. Now, both of these, remember, I'm referring to UK terms completely, so you may find that the yarn sort of is slightly different in your country, or the hook size number and things like that. So always check on those conversion charts before you get going, just in case. Now, if you've not used a smaller hook before, don't worry, you can actually do the bag on a larger hook and slowly work your way down. That's how I did it. I started on a 4mm crochet hook when I first started crocheting, but I desperately wanted to crochet for small things, so I just reduced a hook size down at a time, a yarn size down at a time, and I'm now quite happy with a sort of 0.75mm crochet hook and a 1-ply yarn-ish. That's about as low as I've gone. I do keep saying I want to try lower because it's been a long time now since I've done that, so I should be able to do it. So that's what we're going to use. Obviously, I have scissors and needle at ready, so we'll move them to one side. We don't need them now. We're going to move you, missus, to one side slightly, and let's have a look at this bag. This is the little bag. It is actually a V-stitch we have used here. All of V-stitches is a combination of trebles and chains, so don't worry about that. To be honest, after the first row, it's great to do. Chain obviously for the handle, and the back is the same, and then it is crocheted round. Now, obviously, you could embellish it up. Now, I'm going to be making more of these ready for DollyCon later in the year, so I will be taking a few along to sell, but I'm going to be decorating some up. I've got some little roses. I thought maybe some lace across the top. You could crochet a flower if you wanted. There's so much you can do to personalise this to you, because obviously everybody likes a little bit of a personal touch on their work, so I'm quite pleased with that. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I'll pop that down as well. I'll move it over there. And let's get this yarn in. Oh, I do so love this yarn. It is just, I don't know, I've just used it for so many things. I just think it's brilliant. So here we go. We have our slip knot. Remember, cotton doesn't give as much either, so don't crochet too tight, because otherwise you'll not get your needle in the space. So here we go. 16 chain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you see I'm not doing it too tight? 5, 6. Try and relax when you're working. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16. So we've got a nice chain there. Again, if you want to make a bigger bag, just do more chain. We're going to do one more though, and that's going to just be my turning chain. So here we go. So we're going to just count that as a nothing. It's just a turning chain, because I want to work on the 16. I don't want to work on that one. We're going to do 1 double crochet in every stitch now. So into the next one, down, and double crochet. Okay, so into the chain, pull it through. We have 2 on the hook, and we pull it through, and you're going to do that all the way along. I wasn't quite sure how close to film this with it being sort of a smaller sort of hook and everything, but I hope you can see that okay. I'll find out when I play it back, but it should be okay. I really like this denim colour as well. I know I did the pink one because obviously she's got like the pinky purple hair, so I thought I'll go with that because that's a bag I will be keeping. I always keep at least one of each of my samples for my girls, especially if I'm doing any photography or anything like that. It's always nice to have those accessories. And it's also a reference, keep flattening that down because I know it curls. It's also a reference if I do want to make something else, so it's always handy. Because I have been known to lose patterns. Oh, dropped a stitch there. There we go. So if I've got the original item, I can usually work it out from there. Right, last stitch in. So now we have, oh, we don't have, because I've dropped it again. There we go. So we have 1 row of double crochet. We're now going to start moving on to this V-stitch. I'm going to do my turning chain now before I turn. Up to you. All I'm going to say is you need 3 chain. 1, 2 and 3, then I turn my work. I find it easier to turn that way, but I know most patterns are written differently. They'll say next row, then you do a 3 chain. Entirely up to you. So that is actually going to count as a stitch. That counts as my first treble. I'm now going to miss the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and into this one, number 3, I'm going to do a treble stitch. I'm now going to do a chain, and I'm going to do another treble stitch into the same hole. That is our V-stitch. Some V-stitches vary. Usually it's 2 chain in between, but for something this small I decided just to do the 1. But for this case it's 1 treble, 1 chain and 1 treble is our V-stitch. Now we need to miss 2 stitches again. Miss 1, miss 2 into number 3. We are going to do 1 treble, 1 chain and 1 treble, and we're going to repeat that again. So you can sort of see, can you see how you get like a V sort of shape there? So this is the one. So we're going to miss 2, miss 1, miss 2 into 3, we do a treble, we do a chain, we do a treble into the same space. 1 more set, so we miss 1. I usually wrap before I count, that's the only reason I've done that. So I go 1, 2 into 3, 1 treble, 1 chain and 1 treble. Now we should hopefully have 2 to miss, and then in the very last stitch we're going to do a treble. So I've got 1, 2, and yes, I have that last stitch. It's always a nightmare to see when it's a double crochet, but we will get in there. I usually have a bit of a fight, but watch your fingers, by the way. You can get sore fingers when you're using a smaller hook. There we go. So can you see what we've got? There's the equivalent to a treble with the 3 chain at the beginning. There is a treble at the end, and we have 4 V-stitches in the middle. So that's our base. You could argue it is a foundation row, even though you've done a double crochet row. It is the foundation row for your V-stitch, and after this it gets even easier. So I'm just going to mark off that I've done my first row, because we just have 1, 2, 3, 4 more rows that are going to be V-stitch. Again, you can make your little bag longer, shorter, however you want. But here we go. This is how it makes it easier. We do our 3 chain. We're always going to do 3 chain at the beginning. We're going to turn. Now we don't have to worry about picking up stitches or anything like that, because we're just going to go in that hole. You know where you did your 1 chain space between the 2 trebles? You're going to go in that hole in between with 1 treble, 1 chain and 1 treble. How much easier is that? We're going to do the same. We're going to just jump to the next V-stitch, and you're going to do 1 treble, 1 chain and 1 treble. Looking good. Again the same, just jump to the next V-stitch and do 1 treble, 1 chain and 1 treble. We've got 1 more V-stitch to go into, so 1 treble, 1 chain and 1 V-stitch. Now we've come to the end, so can you remember that was a 3 chain there? It's a little bit tricky to get into the 3 chain. You're usually ending up going around the 2nd chain rather than the 3rd one, but I do find that neatens the side up a little bit. So yarn round, find the top approximate of that 3 chain and do me a treble. And there you go. 2nd row completed. So I'm going to mark that off. 3 chain, 1, 2 and 3 and turn. So we're just going to jump straight. You can see the V-stitches now. Yeah, straight into that V-stitch with 1 treble, 1 chain and 1 treble. Just undo that yarn a little bit, And we're going to do that all the way along. So we end up with our 4 V-stitches. And the equivalent to a treble at each end, although one of them's always a 3 chain, isn't it? Because it's our turn. Oh, nearly dropped it. 1 chain, 1 treble into this very last stitch. And like I say, I know they usually say, oh, top of the 3 chain. You can't really do that because the way it is, so it's really around 2 that we're going, but you can sort of fiddle about with that as it suits you, because there we go. So we've got 2 rows now. There's 3 in total, but obviously I counted the first one as a bit of a foundation. So off we go. 1, 2, 3, turn. If you're having trouble with this, if it is too tight, pop 4 chain in. It doesn't really matter. I just like the 3 because it pulls it a bit tighter at the side. I suppose really most people would go 3 chain plus 1, but I find the 3 just makes it a bit neater, but entirely up to you, that bit. So V-stitch in the V-stitch. This is why oh no, I didn't wrap that, did I? Wrap and in. So V-stitch, remember just our V-stitch. I'll just pop a note in the notes, I think, and just say that the V-stitch is 1 treble, 1 chain, 1 treble to sort of remind you. So just into the space between those 2 trebles, we do another V-stitch. And we do another V-stitch. And our last one, 1 chain and a V-stitch, and towards the top of that last 3 chain. There we go. Another row done. I mean, you could stop there. That would sort of make quite a nice size little bag in its own right, but I'm going to do 1 more row. So 3 chain, 1, 2 and 3, and then I'll turn, and 1 V-stitch into each V-stitch space. It's one of my favourite stitches, as I've said. It's just so easy, because even if you're doing something sort of person size, when you get going with it, you're not having to mess about getting into chains or into stitches. You're just going into space, a little bit like you do with a granny square, really. You're only going into spaces rather than actual stitches, and it makes it quicker and easier to do. So my last one in the end, and that is my actual V-stitches done. So you can see we've got an approximate size there, but I do want to do another double crochet round just to neaten it off. So if it's going to be a double crochet row, I need 1 chain and turn. This time we are going into stitches, I'm afraid, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 1 stitch into the treble, 1 in the chain space, 1 in the treble, next one's a treble, so be careful on that, don't just do it alternate, and 1 in the chain space. So it's every top of each treble you will do a double crochet, and then 1 just in the space. We're almost there with one side. Oh, I nearly went to the wrong one. That was not a space, was it? Be careful, the space is only the one between the V-stitch, otherwise you'll end up with too many stitches. And into that last one, and there we go. We're going to fasten that off. That's side 1. So I am going to do both sides with you. Obviously I'm going to move a little bit faster now, but it's just, I think sometimes nice to see things in real time rather than sort of me saying, oh, and here's one I did earlier. Sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to start with my 16 chain plus 1 for the turn. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16 plus 1 for my turn. Now just a double crochet row, remember, so not in that first one there, in that one there, so we need 16 stitches, and just 1 double crochet into each one of those chain. I say just keep flattening that out. It just curls a bit, but it flattens easy enough, especially with it being cotton. You just sort of give it a little bit of a stretch and it'll stay in place. I was doing it again. Yep, just there you go. Nearly there at the end for this one, and then we can start our V-stitches. There we go. So we're at the end of our first double crochet row. We're now moving on to what I'm going to call my foundation row for V-stitch. So we're going to do 3 chain, 1, 2 and 3. We're going to turn our work. You're going to miss the first 2, 1, 2, and into number 3 we do our first V-stitch, which is 1 treble, 1 chain, or 1 treble. You're going to miss one, miss one, you're going to miss 2, 1, 2, and into the third we're going to do treble, chain, and treble. I'm sure some of you have already done the second one and are waiting for me to do the next bit, but as I say, I wanted to sort of see it a little bit more real time, and it gives the sort of the beginners a chance to sort of try this the second time as well. 1 chain. Please don't be scared of using these hooks, these steel hooks, these sort of, it's weird, I don't like number 2s or number 5 hooks because they're not steel. These are sort of a solid steel and they bend very easy. I do use them, but I can guarantee eventually I'll just snap it in half because for some reason I'm quite heavy-handed. So where are we there? Next, miss 2 and our last V-stitch. But these steel hooks are so great because you can apply that extra pressure with them and they sort of last forever. It's like you'll see some of the old antique hooks, won't you? They'll all be steel because they last. Right, so we're going to miss 2 and we're going to have 1 treble in the very last stitch, which is always a pain to get into. There we go, we've done it. Well, so there is my foundation for my V-stitch. So 3 chain, 1, 2 and 3, and turn, and into the first V-stitch, 1 treble, 1 chain, and 1 treble. Okay, I think we've got the idea of what you're doing now. Have a little practice of it on sort of a bigger yarn if you're not familiar with it, and just make sure you're comfortable with the stitch. You might find you end up doing yourself a scarf in it or something like that. I've done V-stitch scarves which are great. Just make sure the V-stitch is inside or between those 2 trebles and over the 1 chain. And the last one is a treble. There we go. Another one. 1, 2 and 3 and turn. V-stitch and V-stitch. So I'm not going to talk so much about the stitch now. I'm just going to sort of get on with it. If you want to pause me or slow me down, by all means. I would recommend you turn the volume off if you slow me down too much, because I do sound a little bit silly on there. Or like I say, just pause it. You do your rounds, I was going to say then, your rows, that's because I do rounds so often. Your rows and come back to me at the end. I don't mind, whichever way works for you. And the last one. And 3 chain turn. 1, 2 and 3. I can't believe how warm it is here today. It's very dull out there. I mean, I've got storms coming, but it's really warm. It's been great for photos though. I've took some really cute photos of her with the bag, which you'll see on the thumbnail. My stomach's rumbling again. I've got to stop filming at this time of day, but I prefer to do it because it gets it out of the way. But because I'm on certain medications in the morning, I know I've mentioned it before, I can't have breakfast straight away. I have to wait so long. But then I decide to get into doing the video and I forget completely about breakfast. And by the time I get to this point, my stomach starts screaming. I know from the other videos I've done, I'm pretty sure you can't hear it. But the only thing is, it's my new phone. You might be able to hear it. I don't know. So excuse my stomach if you can hear it rumbling. Right, so how many have we got there? We need 1 more. 1, 2 and 3 and turn. So the squares themselves don't take a lot of doing. I've actually started doing a couple of hats for the Blythe as well, so I'll put them on my website. I've got to decide whether to do videos because their heads obviously are larger than Smart Doll heads. They're probably one of the largest heads I've worked with, and they will take a lot longer to make a video. That's why I decided to go for a bag. I thought, you know, little fakey Blythe here needs a little bit of attention, so we'll make a bag. But I do need to consider hats or something like that. So that was it. That is our V-stitch amount. Now we now need to do that last double crochet round. So it's only one chain if it's a double crochet, and remember it only goes into the top of the stitches, so the top of the trebles, and in between the space of the 3 chain. 3 chain, what am I on about? The 1 chain. I think I do need my breakfast to wake me up. Never mind, we're nearly there. And then I can eat. Don't know what I'm having yet though. I'm trying to be really good at the moment. My daughter's getting married in October, and I desperately want to fit into some dresses I've seen. So I'm trying to be so good. So it's killing me at the minute. No chocolate. There we go. So that is our second square. So we can fasten it off. Now there's 2 ways of doing this next bit. You can either sew in all your ends and get rid of them, which is what I'm going to do. I know nobody likes sewing in. I've got at the moment about 16 Cindy hats that need their ends sewing in and their flowers making, and I'm being put off because I hate sewing up. So I'm using quite a small needle here. I don't use sort of a big chunky wool needle because you'll just not get it through. I'd prefer, I mean, I'll use a finer needle anyway, even with my bigger work. So basically what I'm doing is just threading it through as far as I can. It's not quite as easy as doing amigurumi to get rid of your ends because you don't want them coming undone. It's quite tough to get through as well. So that's why I'm doing, if it was a different yarn, I'd just run it all the way through. But because it's cotton like it is, it takes a little bit of effort to actually push the needle through. But saying that, it makes it more secure in the long term. So it is worth it. Right, so that's my first end in. And the other side. I mean, you can actually crochet these in as you crochet the sides together. It's just that then you've got a lot of sort of pieces of yarn hanging about. But if you want to do that, you can do it. I know I've done it on previous bags. Right, so I'm actually stitching in on the back side of the work. It's just easier to get into. Let's see, this one's going through a bit easier because the other one was the beginning, so it wasn't it, and it's sort of a little bit harder going from foundation rows. That will do. So I've just gone just over halfway on each one. And careful not to cut your work. Again, wouldn't be the first time I've done that. In fact, I did it last night. I went to snip one of the ends off of something I was making and snipped the wrong one off. So yes, you can rejoin your yarn, but it makes it messy sometimes, especially if you're working in, it's not going to go in this one, is it? Especially if you're working on something small. It's handy. I haven't got great nails, but it's handy to have a bit of a nail when you're trying to thread these through. So off we go. Because I don't leave too big gaps though when you're sort of doing it like this, because you don't want to suddenly see a line where the yarn's not gone through the other yarn, because it again makes it look messy. I mean, this is the bottom part of the bag, so you'd probably get away with it because it's inside, but you know, it's good practice to keep things neat and not get it dangled like that. Right, so that is a, careful, another one done. Because I'm cutting, obviously, because I'm filming, I've got to like sort of cut from a different angle to what I would normally do. I think, to be honest, I'm just thinking what this needle is. I've got a feeling it's a tapestry needle rather than a wool needle, because they are finer and they have a bit more of a point to them. Some wool needles are really big, clunky sort of blunt ended things, which are great if you were doing a double knit cardigan or something for yourself. It's not great when you're working on a smaller scale. I'm sure these are tapestry needles that I've got. Right, last little bit there. Let's pull that through. There we go. Flatten it down before I cut it. And cut. Right, so I'm putting the needle to one side. So we have two little squares. Now I need these squares with the front side. Now if you're not sure, look along the edge here, yeah? So you can see the chainy bit. That sort of needs to face towards you, and that makes that the front. So I know that's the front of that one. And again, my little chains are sort of pointing towards me. Like otherwise it's that way, so it's a bit lumpier that way. That's the way you want it. So those are both fronts. So I want both fronts facing outwards. Yep, so wrong sides together. And I'm going to start, remember this is the top, I'm going to start in this corner. And before I even get my yarn, I'm just going to pop my hook in, because that first one's always hard because it's where I've just sort of fastened off. And I'm going to put my hook in, and then I'll grab my yarn. And we're going to sort of do a double crochet all the way around the bag, and we'll do the chain for the strap at the end, so it's all in one. So there's less joining. So just to get us going, now this is the hard one. You have to fiddle, pull it through. Now also do a double crochet there, don't just pull it through and fasten it off. There we go. So that's nice and secure now. So you can see where your either 3 chain or treble are there. Yep, I'm going to just work in them, so make sure they're lined up. You can see through, can you see through how the holes are lined up there? I hope you can see that. And in each space I'm going to just do 2 double crochets, even though it was a 3 chain. I know I'm only going to do 2 though. So I've just gone straight into this hole, yeah, and then another one straight into the hole. Look for the next one, make sure they're lined up so you can see all the way through both sides. And we do 2. Again, fiddle it about, make sure it's lined up, and do 2. And again we have 2. And our last one that is just a space. Now remember the bottom we did the chain and then we did a DC row, so we do need a double crochet in the equivalent to the double crochet row, and then we need one in the equivalent to that chain. So sometimes you need to separate it just to make sure you're getting in the right bit. Okay, and I'm going to do another one in there, so I've done 2 in the corner just to square it off a little bit. And now we need to try and line up that original chain so you can work in both sides of the chain. Yes, you can see. So take your time on this one, because you don't want any holes or any gaps. We want this to be a little functional bag, so you could pop a little toy in it, or you could put some flowers in it or something like that if you were doing some photography. I like the bags to be functional rather than just sort of a flat shape. Could you hear the dog rattling then? She's trying to get in. And I'll mention before, she lies outside my door. I shut the door, not because of her, but because of the cat. When I'm working, she's allowed in here any other time because everything goes away in between time. But she would be chasing the wool, and we can do without that at the moment. Although she'll be fast asleep on my bed. As she's getting older, that's what she likes to do. She gets up as a breakfast and then back onto my bed to have a sleep. Right, so that's the end of the chain. Remember, there's a double crochet row there, so we do need to do those 2. And then we're back to the holes again. So line your holes up and just 2 double crochets into every single one of those holes. I just think it neatens it more by actually going into the holes than trying to sort of get into chains and stitches and things like that. Gives more definition, and I think particularly when you're using a cotton like this, that definition is really nice to see. So we're almost there. I'm going to do one more. I need to try and pick up there. Sometimes you do have to push it through a bit. Like I say, a bit tough on your fingers sometimes. There we go. So that's all the way around now. So now we need the chain. Now I actually did a 40 chain. You may want to measure it on your doll, so do so many and then see what you think. My chains are quite tight, It will depend on sort of how loose and what sort of hook, etc. you're using. So we're going to count 40, I hope so. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see I move up as I go. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can leave it open a bit. 10, so if I went 11, 12, 13. If I went much below that though, the chains would start to sort of get looser. So that's 13. Move my fingers up. 14, 15, 16. Move it up. 17, 18, 19, 20. Halfway there. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Just 10 more to go. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Nearly 37, 38, 39 and 40. The other thing about moving your finger up all the time, it keeps it flat. It doesn't twist it, because if you start to twist it, your chain looks a little bit messy. So by keep moving your fingers up there, it will keep that sort of nice consistent work there. So now we just need to join it to the other side. So over we go. Find a little area where you want the actual strap to finish off. Pull that tight first. Pull it through and do a double crochet, and then I'm just doing a slip stitch as well. You don't have to, it just sort of finishes it off, but I've split my stitch now. There we go. And there we've done. We have another little blue bag. Well, we don't have another blue one, we have a blue one. We had a pink one before. So all we need to do now, we just got those two ends to sew in, and because if you look, you can tell there's a definite front and a back when you crochet something together. So this is my definite front and this is my definite back, but because the back is sort of more rounded, it's easier to thread these other threads through. So I always sew in from the back. So basically that is it. That is our little sort of fashion doll bag, whether it be for Blythe, for Cindy, for Barbie. It would also go with my little Parabox, even Leica-chan. There's so many sort of dolls it will fit. So it's a fun one to do. So whether you're doing it for yourself, for your dolls, to actually do some photographic work, or just to look nice on the side, or if it's for your children or grandchildren, it's a great one. They can't hurt that, can they? I know I'll probably be making a couple of these for my granddaughter as well at some point, but yeah, it's a great way of doing it, and it didn't take long, did it? So I hope you enjoyed that video. If you do enjoy my videos, whether they be the doll ones or whether they be my general crochet, my glasses nearly fell off then, please like and subscribe. It does mean a lot, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye bye.